From the heart of America, where hard work, freedom, and faith still define who we are. From the farms to the factories, from small towns to city streets, this is the fight for the soul of our nation.
We're watching Democrats attack democracy. Do not be fooled.
The strength, the grit, the greatness of the American spirit, all right here.
The left wanted power, not peace, but there's a resistance rising. A generation saying enough, enough. We've tried it their way, and it failed.
The Steve Gruber Show with your host, Steve Gruber, starts right now.
Well, Thursday morning, fighting for you from the foxhole of freedom every single day, going shoulder to shoulder to make sure that we can save this country, all right? It's about America first. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, an appeals court has given the Trump administration the green light to revoke deportation protections for thousands of people here illegally. Another win for you. Number two, Gallup has decided to stop doing polling on presidential approval ratings after 90 years. Seems odd, doesn't it? Wonder why that is. Maybe the numbers they're pumping out are garbage. Huh. And number three, time to focus on some good news today. All right? The jobs report in. Exceeding expectations even with the slashing of government jobs. This after the stock market hit all-time highs over the past few days, passing 50,000, which I told you it would. House Speaker Mike Johnson. Here he is on promises made, promises kept. Listen.
Under Republican leadership, the U.S. economy has consistently grown and far exceeded all the expectations that they told us that would happen. The CBO and others were way off. And the tangible, immediate benefits of our policies are indisputable. Interest rates are down. Inflation is down. Gas prices are significantly decreased and have hit all-time lows in decades. Tax rebates are at an all-time high. You got tens of millions of American families will be able to keep more of their money in their own pockets, and all of that was by design. We made promises. We're keeping our promises. By every conceivable metric, Americans are better off today under Republican governance than they were under the Democrats, and these trends are only going to continue.
They're only going to continue. Comparing the economy now to where it was 4 years ago is really one of the most staggering realizations. Inflation got to 9.1% in 2022. And in 2025, core inflation hovered near 2.6%, one of the lowest core readings in years. And overall inflation in 2025 was the lowest it's been in 5 years. Donald Trump remembers inheriting a total mess from Joe Biden. He's glad to prove the naysayers wrong by turning it around. Here's the president.
I remember when I first won, they said, if he gets the Dow up to 50,000 by the end of his fourth year, he will have done miracles. And we're at the end of the first year. So when you think about it, that's great. And the S&P, the same thing. And everything else. I mean, everything's going great. We inherited a total mess from Biden. And not only the borders, but the economy, the inflation. The inflation was the worst ever in history. They say 48 years, but basically ever in history. And prices were high. And you don't hear them use the word affordability anymore. They can't use it because we brought the prices down. Oil now, I was in Iowa last week, and they were at $1.85 a gallon. And if you go all over the country, in many cases now it's broken $2 a gallon. And that's like a major tax cut. Yeah, and we've given them that too in the great big beautiful bill. So we've had a very good run, and we want to keep it going.
Now, I also remember all the people last year who kept saying over and over again that Donald Trump was going to drive this country right into a recession. I remember just how freaked out they all wanted us to be under the leadership of a man who turned our economy around once 10 years ago and is doing it again now. Listen to all the critics who said, oh, we're going into a recession. Donald Trump's going to destroy the economy. Here they are.
That these tariffs are going to be passed on to American consumers and are going to slow down the economy.
Absolutely. So my guess is we're heading towards a recession. I think that's what
So we're headed toward a recession because of Trump's policies.
Donald Trump is clearly crashing the economy in real time, and he's driving us toward a recession.
Make no mistake about it. Donald Trump is teeing up a nationwide recession.
Off, and that's what worries me most, because we're on the road to both inflation and recession.
And you wonder why I warned you time and again, do not listen to these people. Those folks had no warning signs to flash when Biden was driving our economy actually into the ditch. So you should never trust them when they speak about Trump's economic policies. Never trust them. Of course, there's still room for improvement, which is why Trump and Mike Johnson have committed to keep this going. A new Fed chair might be what makes all the difference. Trump has tapped Kevin Warsh as his pick for the position. And if we cut rates, GDP is going to skyrocket. Lower interest rates always mean more economic activity. It's a better deal for you. And of course, more economic activity isn't always a good thing, but it is when it's paired with job growth and productivity, both of which we're seeing. 130,000 jobs added in January, which is higher than anyone expected. In fact, it's double what the so-called experts had to say. Some said just 35,000 were going to be added. 130,000 new jobs. Here's National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett on the latest numbers.
Labor force participation, the percentage of Americans that are looking for a job or have a job, it actually went to its highest level since 2001. So actually people are coming back off the sidelines into the labor market because they see the high wage growth, all the factory starts and so on. And so that's thing one. Thing two is that because we've been reducing government workers, federal government workers so much, about 360,000 this year, that the jobs numbers actually kind of understate how wonderful the economy is doing because the government worker employment has been a drag. And to put it in perspective, that we've got the lowest government worker number since 1966 and the lowest share of government workers in the labor force in all of history. And so we have done something really, really dramatic in downsizing government. And what that does is it helps us be fiscally responsible and get interest rates lower. Now, the bottom line is that I've been saying on your show really since we started over a year ago, Stu, that I think that we're going to have a big positive supply shock and that we could have high growth and low inflation. Right now, we've got high growth and low inflation, and I think there's plenty of room for the Fed to cut rates.
Now, this is what happened in the 1990s. Rates were lowered while job growth and productivity were on the rise. In America, well, we profited greatly. We prospered. Unemployment was at a historic low. GDP was at a historic high. And America actually reduced its deficit, produced a budget surplus during that time. What a magical idea. Much of the growth was driven by the dawn of the internet. Technological revolution can do that. We're on the cusp of the same thing right now with AI. Productivity is remarkably up thanks to Trump's tax cuts and deregulation, but also thanks to technological change, which is, again, a result of Trump's policies. AI is the future. You and I may not like all of it, and I certainly don't, but that's okay. We as a nation have to be smart about it, and Trump sees that. And he's formalized a national AI policy focus since he stepped foot in the White House, some of which involves reducing barriers to development and encouraging the expansion of infrastructure right here in the United States. The administration has attracted trillions of dollars in tech and AI investment in the U.S., according to its own reports, and it's working. We could repeat the success of the 90s without the dot-com crash. Without the dot-com crash. Wouldn't that be something? Dow 50,000. Everything else looking good. More good news after the break. Good morning. It's the Steve Gruber Show. Now, to be fair, as we continue this conversation, a lot has changed. Boy, a lot has changed since the 1990s in a lot of ways. But back then, markets were pricing in technological revolution before the profits even existed. Today, markets are pricing in an AI revolution, but based on companies that are already generating massive cash flow. You pair this with lower interest rates, and we could see another economic boom. Rick Santelli over at CNBC, pretty psyched up about all this. Love this guy. Here he is.
I'm going to say that nobody's going to rain on my parade, and these numbers are what they are, and 50K. I made this hat 2 months ago, and the reason I made it is for exactly a day like today. All these naysayers steeped in politics continue to be negative. That's okay, because 50K says you've all been wrong. You keep from going in the water even though it's very hot outside. I say all the investment gurus out there, jump in the markets in the U.S. because global GDP is going to take a big ramp up, and the U.S. is leading the way.
All good things. All good things. 130,000 jobs added, and wage growth is up 3.7%, while inflation is only 2.7%. That's real earnings for real Americans. It's a real difference. There's no question about it. This is a chart that deserves a lot of attention. It represents real weekly earnings for America. And the average American's weekly paycheck, adjusted for inflation, shrunk 4% under Biden. That's the orange. But now, it's estimated to have surged 2% during Trump's first year back in office. Stephen Moore boils it all down to cash in your pocket. Here he is.
If you look over the period from when Trump came into office through December, we estimate the average family income is up by about $2,500 after inflation. So that's a big number. So that means not only do we have good job growth, but we have people earning more. I mean, it's kind of a beautiful picture when you really think about it.
Yeah, it is a beautiful picture indeed. It's better than it has been in a long time. Here's some more beautiful pictures for you. Take a look at this chart. That's federal employment. The number of people working for the federal government at its lowest level since, get this, 1966. And like Kevin Hassett said, the lowest level in recorded history as a share of the total workforce. Trimming back, 360,000 jobs eliminated. And yet our job numbers go up. Here's an even better graph to put it in perspective. The green represents private sector jobs. And the blue represents government jobs. The left was at the end of Joe Biden's presidency, and the right, the Trump presidency. Trump was handed an economy that was losing private sector jobs and adding government job to the payroll, to your tax bill. But he successfully flipped the script, and 1 year later, it's all private sector growth while cutting government jobs. It's pretty remarkable. Secretary of Labor, Lori Chavez de Reamer, says she's not as surprised as the rest of the so-called experts are, but it's because she's seen just how dedicated this administration is to making it all work. Here she is.
People say their expectations, well, we were surprised. But, really, when I think about it, we've added construction jobs are up, manufacturing jobs are up, and that's been a testament to the investments of $18 trillion that the president has negotiated and brought back to the American people and the American economy. I've mentioned I have been on the road. I'm going to visit my 48th state tomorrow. Out of the 50-state tour. We're seeing the application of what the workforce is being offered by their employees. They're investing in hiring.
Yeah. That's one more angle that deserves attention when it comes to our economy. It's not just the things that Trump is creating and improving. It's also the terrible things he's putting a stop to. One of those is our acquisition of our farmland by foreign nations, adversaries. I've warned about that so many times on this program, and the Trump administration taking it seriously, thankfully. For all the investment that our nation has attracted in the last year, we don't need that investment to be in the form of scooping up our ground. And Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins understands that. Here's another win from this week. Listen to this.
I believe the ranking member does not understand the definition of generalized.
That before President Trump came into office, the consolidation of our farmlands, the foreign adversarial ownership of farmlands, especially from China and other places, has really been creeping up on our country. Now we have almost 300,000 acres owned by China. Of course, a lot of our food supply and food sources are now foreign, come from foreign sources. And we're working to reverse that while at the same time protecting our farmers, protecting our farmland from our foreign adversaries. So it's just another step in the right direction. I'm so proud of Secretary Hegseth. He has leaned all in on this, as has the president, and we're going to keep fighting for our American farmers and ranchers.
And that right there is something to celebrate all on its own, but that's not the only thing that the Trump administration has protected our country against. Obviously, the border has been a key focus over the last year with great success, but not just for our national security. It will also have an impact on the American dream of owning a home. Secretary Bessent was able to point out that point to Maxine Waters the other day during a finance committee hearing. Listen.
I believe the ranking member does not understand the definition of generalized inflation versus one-time price increases. I would also note that housing, especially for working Americans, a Wharton study has shown that the mass unfettered immigration, adding 10 to 20 million new people demanding housing, Congresswoman, is what caused a great deal of housing inflation for working Americans. So you and the Biden administration should be ashamed.
Yeah, they should be ashamed. So today you can go ahead, break out the happy dance, because slowly but surely, this current administration is delivering wins for every American, even the ones who want to see Donald Trump lose. Here's what I like about longevity wellness. It's simple and it works. One Daily Shake delivers protein, collagen, omega-3s, probiotics, and colostrum, supporting your gut, joints, brain, and immune system. No gimmicks, no clutter, just clean science. Good stuff, by the way. Backed up nutrition for the people who want to feel better every day. Right now, you can get a special discount. Go to longevitywellness.co. Use the promo code Gruber. That's longevitywellness.co, promo code Gruber. And if you get a subscription, you'll save even more money. We use it in this house every day. The QR code is right there. Now, coming up after the break, a special preview. Latin America, hosted by myself and Ivy. Our first guest, well, we'll keep it a secret until after the break. First guest, sneak preview. Forgotten America. Sign up to YouTube right now. Become a subscriber. Like it. And you'll get it all for free, all right? I'll be right back. All right, just a reminder that coming Monday morning at 9 a.m., the first episode of Forgotten America, the podcast, will drop on YouTube. So in order to become involved in seeing, you're going to like this. It's Kyle Rittenhouse, by the way, a man that was demonized by the left, celebrated by the right, but he's just a guy. The truth lies somewhere in the middle, don't you think? A little sneak preview of the conversation. Here it is.
Well, look, Steve, we both can agree that it was stupid. We can all agree that it was stupid for me to be down there. I was 17 years old. I had no business being at a riot. I should never have gone, but that does not take away my right to self-defense. The only thing I would have done different, if I would have known I was going to be violently attacked and maliciously prosecuted, I would never have gone there. I would have stayed at home, would have let the city burn down.
That's exactly right. He never would have gone. 17 years old, he goes, I was a kid. I should never have been there. But he was. Became the focus of so much hate from the left. He gets death threats every day. Kyle Rittenhouse does. He said, but after the murder of Charlie Kirk, he could no longer remain silent. He had to come out, all right? So, follow us on YouTube. Here's how you do that. There's a QR code. You can jump right on. 9 o'clock, Monday morning. Forgotten America. We're going to do conversations, long form, with all sorts of folks. People you know, people you don't. Ivy there with me talking to all these interesting and colorful people. And Kyle Rittenhouse, man, his life was torn apart. And some on the left will say, well, he deserves that. Did he? Deserved to be attacked, hit in the back of the head with a rock? He warned people repeatedly, back off, back off, back off. They didn't. People died, as you know, Kenosha, Wisconsin. So here we are. He was acquitted, by the way, by a jury of his peers. It's a very interesting conversation, so mark that down. Monday morning, 9 a.m. on YouTube. And again, there is your YouTube QR code. You can become a follower. So click the like button, become a subscriber on YouTube today, and you can catch the first episode of Forgotten America coming Monday morning. I look forward to it. After the break, Hans von Spakovsky will be here. We're going to talk about a judge blocking the termination of protected status for Haitians here in America, and so much more after the break. All right, let's just jump right into it now. A lot of things happening when it comes to protected status. Apparently, one appeals court has allowed the Trump administration to let people from Nicaragua, Nepal, and Honduras, they can be shown the door, but those from Haiti apparently cannot. Oh, these judges. Hans von Spakovsky, a legal expert, senior legal fellow at the Edwin Meese Institute, for the rule of law and advancing American freedom. AAF joins me now. Hans, nice to see you.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, scattergun here. I mean, it's one judge says this, one judge says that. Does the president have the power in the Constitution to set and enforce immigration law in this country or not?
Well, he does, but in this case, it's the efforts of the Trump administration are even stronger because Congress gave the president specific power over this. You know, you mentioned one court ruling this, one court ruling that. No court should be ruling at all, Steve, and here's why. The statute that sets up what's called temporary protected status, and in essence, what the statute does is it says the president, through the Department of Homeland Security, can provide temporary lawful status in the U.S. for aliens under certain circumstances. And most of them are tied to things like natural disasters. So with the Haitians, for example, in 2001, you recall a huge earthquake hit Haiti. And so Obama provided TPS for Haitians who were fleeing the island. Now, that was more than 2 decades ago. So President Trump recently ended TPS, was supposed to end February 3rd. Look, here's what people need to know. The statute specifically says no court shall have jurisdiction to review the determination of the government to either grant TPS,
it's what we love about the law,
or extend it.
It's what we love about the law, Hans. No court shall review. Court says we're going to review anyway. Yeah, because they think those in black robes too often think they themselves are above the law. Yes or no?
No, that's exactly right. In this case, it was a judge in the District of Columbia named Anna Reyes who basically had to violate federal law in order to do this. And you can see why. She's a Biden appointee. When you read the order, she's basically ranting and raging against Secretary Noem for having ended temporary status. And she said, nope, you can't do that. Not only that, but they will continue to get work permits and all the other benefits they get for being legally in the United States.
So the people from Honduras, 50,000, 7,000 Nepalese, 3,000 Nicaraguans, they go away. But again, it was a court that made this decision. Shouldn't even be in the courts, you're saying, right? But overall, how would you grade the immigration policies? Look, of course, there are those that have their hair on fire. Oh, my gosh, we can't throw anybody out because it's going to impact political power in California and elsewhere. They don't say it that way, but that's what it's about. One court says yes, one court says no. Does this just go to the Supreme Court and have them say, you can't rule on this? Why don't we just clean it up?
Well, that's what's going to eventually happen with all of these cases. Look, the Trump administration has been phenomenally successful in what it's been doing in the immigration area. All I got to do is go back 2 years during the campaign when the president was saying, look, I'm going to shut down the southern border. Everyone said it couldn't be done, that there was no way you could stop the flow. And it was literally thousands of illegal aliens coming in every single day. The border has been virtually shut down. There's just a trickle. In fact, it's breaking records. So few people are coming across. The second half, of course, of that is interior enforcement, and that is ending what was supposed to be temporary protected status. Look, when Congress passed this law, it was supposed to be, yeah, you give TPS for a few months, maybe a year or two, while a country like Haiti gets over, for example, getting hurt by an earthquake. It's not supposed to go for 2.5 decades. That's not temporary.
No, that's definitely not temporary. I want to shift gears and ask you about something else here, where the courts have weighed in favorably for the Democrats, but not for the Republicans, it seems, thus far. That's redistricting. Right. Obviously, they supported the map in California, did the left of center jurists. Virginia is now going to make it a 10-to-1 map, putting the Republicans at a disadvantage. Texas got through, but others were told no. I think Alabama was told no, you can't do that, and some others, which is why it's going to the Supreme Court. The problem here is the Supreme Court most likely to rule in favor of the Republicans and say you cannot gerrymander states based on race, which Alabama, Louisiana, Tennessee, and some others have done, all red states, ironically. But by the time that ruling comes down in June, it might be too late to put in new districts by the time we get to the midterms. And so the Democrats right now have a clear advantage. First of all, it's the midterms, which historically will give them the advantage. And you throw in Virginia and California, and Republicans are going to lose.
Well, except that, remember, in Texas, the Supreme Court actually stayed or stopped an earlier court decision that threw out the new redistricting map. So Texas kind of equals out what's happening in California. In Virginia, it was actually a state court has stopped the Democratic redistricting for very, very good reasons that I actually think the state Supreme Court is going to uphold. So I actually think that the Democrats are not going to get the new plan that they want in Virginia. We should hear pretty soon in that Virginia case. But with the other cases you're talking about, yeah, I think it may be too late for whatever decision it is the Supreme Court comes down with in the Louisiana case, for example, to affect the midterm elections.
Yeah, I feel pretty confident that's going to go the right direction because it's pretty clear you can't make congressional districts based on race. I mean, that's pretty clear in America, and I think that's pretty clear. But what about migration? Here's the other thing that the Democrats are staring at, which is why they're fighting tooth and nail to keep people in this country that don't belong here. Mass migration out of California, New York, Illinois, these other blue states, and they're all going to red states. And looking at the 2030 census, that could mean, from what I'm reading, 15 new Republican seats, a major shift. If the Supreme Court also goes along, that should affect about 12 seats. All of a sudden, you get 25 or 30 seats shifting red. And the Democrats will never control the House again. But my concern, Hans, is very simple. By 2031, the damage has already been done. Last word to you.
Well, also don't forget, in the last census, the Census Bureau admitted making big mistakes so that a number of red states were cheated out of additional House seats, which equals electoral college votes. Hopefully that'll get corrected in the next census.
Hopefully, well, you're right. Florida should have had more. Texas should have had more, and yet they didn't. Hans, thank you as always.
Thanks for having me.
All right, sir. Well, Valentine's Day means it's time for romance. Chocolate and apparently sore backs, aching knees from trying to impress somebody, getting down on your knees. Hey, honey, well, if aches and pains and everyday discomfort are slowing you down, Patriots Relief could help. Right now, they've got a Valentine's Day special. Get 45% off store-wide for a limited time, no matter what you're buying. If it's for someone you love or you just want to love yourself a little bit, hey, it's self-care, right? It's cool. Real Relief, just a phone call away, 877-230-1776, 877-230-1776, or patriotsrelief.com, promo code Gruber, of course, 45% off. Isn't that a sweet deal for Valentine's Day? patriotsrelief.com, 45% off. There you go. Greatly appreciate it. We'll take a break and be right back. Well, we started the program talking about the economy, and I want to talk more about it because, look, all the so-called experts keep getting it wrong, and it seems that the Trump administration keeps getting it right. No lazy money with Nick Hopwood, certified financial planner, founder, president, Peak Wealth Management. If you're thinking about retiring soon, need a second opinion, you can always call Nick. Here he is. Nick, good morning.
Hey, Steve. How are you today?
I'm good. All right, so some of the projections, the jobs report, just the latest example of the experts, and I use that really loosely. Some said 35,000 new jobs. The high estimate was 65,000. And here's the number, 130,000, double what the experts claimed was going to happen. And by the way, that includes 45,000 jobs less in government. So that's a pretty impressive number. 45,000 jobs were taken out of government, and 130,000 were added in the private sector. It's a good number, isn't it, Nick?
It is. It was a very nice number. And like you said, my favorite part is the minus 42,000 of government jobs. You know, in the prior administration, it seemed like there were 42,000 new government jobs every month.
Yeah.
And that was kind of propping up some of the good jobs numbers, as well as immigration, right? That was helping boost the jobs numbers as well. So we might not see great jobs numbers going forward with those two dynamics, but if we can print 130, then we'll be in great shape.
Yeah, if we can stay at that level, 100,000-ish, whatever. All right, so the Dow crossed 50,000. NASDAQ took a little bit of a slap. Not bad, but a little bit. But Dow crossing 50,000. I remember when I was younger, my dad said, I never thought I'd live to see the day the Dow made it to 10,000, Steve. And it was a big deal to him because the Dow had crossed it. My dad was always an investor. Crossed 10,000. Here we are, 50,000. And now I said this was going to happen early in the new year. I was right. A lot of people said it would never happen. Your thoughts on this?
Well, Steve, your dad was right. The first 10,000 is the hardest. So now we're in the compounding stage. Yep.
That's right.
It won't be too long until it's 100,000, really. Maybe less than 10 years.
Well, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because, you've got people that are like, well, if it goes to 100,000, that means you've got inflation. You've got all these other problems. Is that true or is that not true?
That's overblown. So, yes, we'll have a little bit of inflation, hopefully in the 2% range rather than 3%. Over time, that does make a big difference.
Sure.
But we're going to see, general growth in the economy, hopefully in that 3-4% range. And it works out. So, yeah, you get to the 100,000. Present value is not exactly the same in terms of today's dollars, but we'll definitely take it. But Steve, interestingly, as we've been seeing the Dow, like the more industrial type companies, the value type companies make new highs, NASDAQ has not made a new high since October. And a lot of the Mag 7, AI stocks have been off 20% or more. So I think we are seeing a rotation in the market, and it is healthy.
Well, yeah, money's turning over, going the other direction. Good stuff. The problem we had the last time we had a big, boom like this, we ended up having the dot-com bubble. And, of course, we had the trouble in 2008. So my question is pretty simple, Nick. Have we learned our lesson? I mean, because this AI thing is serious, but these companies are making big money. They're growing. And AI is changing everything from the way you drive your car, your refrigerator talks to you, which is weird. But you've got all these different things going on, right? All these machines talking to you. They're all interconnected. I don't feel like it's a dot-com bubble like we saw then. What are your thoughts? Have we learned our lesson?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that we can do it without the dot-com crash. But in the event that we do have, a parallel crash, what did we learn last time? Okay, we don't want to be too aggressive with tech. We don't want to have too much equity in our portfolio. We need to have value. We need to have small caps. We need to have international, and we need to have fixed income. And if you had those diversified asset classes in 2001, yes, you were down, but you were not out. And so that's the reminder, if we see that parallel, to make sure that you are diversified beyond the tech stocks.
Well, then let me ask you this. You said, the NASDAQ's down 20%. I think it was Warren Buffett that said, when there's blood in the streets, buy. Pretty simple advice. When there's blood in the streets, buy, meaning when there's a big sell-off like this, and you know that the fundamentals of any given company are good, you go and you invest in it. Is that your advice?
It is. And NASDAQ is unchanged since October, and some of the Mag 7 stocks are down 20% or more. And those do look interesting. This is not general advice here, but when we do see particularly the Mag 7 names down 30 and 40%, it could create opportunities.
Yeah. Next point here. It's kind of funny that this pops up today, but I was on the Social Security website trying to navigate it here yesterday, actually, because I'm just curious. I'm probably not going to take it till I'm 70 because, I'm going to try to hold off as long as possible. But you have tools there that you can tell somebody exactly what to expect and when, whether you take it at 62, 65, 67, or 70, depending on where you take it, right? Life expectancy, tax planning, all that. You can give somebody a pretty good opinion.
Yeah, so Steve, if you give me your date of birth, Ivy's date of birth, and what your Social Security earnings projections are, we can run the analysis and show you collect at a certain age, she collects at a certain age, maybe she collects on your record and then on her own record, and we flip back and forth. It's called Social Security optimization, and it's not just about getting the max per month today, but it's about getting the max over your lifetime. And also considering your other resources, your other investments, and other goals like tax planning, we could delay and have some really exciting opportunities to maximize your total benefit.
Yeah, all very important. All right, last thing. We only got about 30 seconds here, but this is another important thing we were talking about in the office this week. Private equity buying up HVAC companies and veterinary services and anything you can, colonizing it to create cash flow. You are not private equity. You are proudly independent, fiercely independent, right?
That's right, Steve. So we're seeing a trend of private equity buying out financial advisors like Peak Wealth Management. Oftentimes we start working for the New York firm, for the mothership. We realize this is not the best for our clients. So we create our own firm. And so we can do our own things independently. And now selling out to private equity, going back to where we were, answering to the mothership.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense to me.
All right, peakwm.com or that QR code that's on your screen right there. You can get that free Social Security analysis with a private guy who's not working for some guy in New York. peakwm.com. Nick Hopwood. Thank you, Nick.
Steve, don't forget the /Gruber.
Oh, yeah, /Gruber. peakwm.com /Gruber. Don't /Gruber. Just put it on the, Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
All right. Well, before we round out this hour, I want to remind you that coming Monday morning at 9 a.m., new episode of Forgotten America drops with Kyle Rittenhouse, demonized by the left, the poster child of everything wrong with Red America. On the other side, he was glorified by gun owners and so forth. It was a terrible situation that occurred. He killed 2 people, shot a third that survived to defend himself, a 17-year-old kid in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Terrible. Rioting that night. Changed his life forever. Maybe not for the better, but just changed his life forever. That drops Monday morning at 9 a.m. Here's a preview.
It was not wise at 17 years old to go down there. But it does not take away that they violently and maliciously attacked me and tried to take my life away from me. That's unacceptable that they did that, and I have a right to self-defense, even for making a minor lack of judgment in going there.
Yeah. Says it changed his life. Says he has PTSD. He said he had gone off the scene, just disappeared, didn't get on social media anymore because of all the hate, the daily death threats and so forth. But he said when Charlie Kirk, good friend of his, by the way, they were close. Charlie gave him a platform to talk. He said when Charlie Kirk was murdered on TV, live, he said, I couldn't sit quietly anymore. And now he's part of the Texas Gun Rights Association, moved to Texas, got married. No matter what you might think of Kyle Rittenhouse, he's a human being who, through a bad decision, which he admits, 17 years old, never should have been there. Never should have been there at all. But it's an interesting conversation you won't want to miss. Forgotten America with myself and Ivy, dropping every Monday morning at 9 a.m. Just go to YouTube. Click the like button. Become a subscriber. It's all there. Steve Gruber is now the name of the page. Steve Gruber on YouTube. Everything Gruber will be there. We've got another project we're going to be dropping here in the next couple of weeks, too, you're going to like. Short stuff that's really interesting about American history. So a lot of great things at YouTube. You just have to become a subscriber. Do that today. Why wait? Give us some Valentine's love, I suppose, right? All right, in the next hour, Paul Miller will be here, CPA, talking about the 5 things to check before you hit submit on your tax return. It's that time of the year, and people are getting big returns. It's all in the next hour here on The Steve Gruber Show. See you on YouTube.
From the heart of America, where hard work, freedom, and faith still define who we are. From the farms to the factories, from small towns to city streets, this is the fight for the soul of our nation.
We're watching Democrats attack democracy. Do not be fooled.
The strength, the grit, the greatness of the American spirit, all right here.
The left wanted power, not peace, but there's a resistance rising. A generation saying enough, enough. We've tried it their way, and it failed.
The Steve Gruber Show with your host, Steve Gruber, starts right now.
Good to see you today as we kick off another brand new hour here. Glad to have you on board. Fighting for you from the foxhole of freedom. It's a fight every day. You've got to fight back against the propaganda and the people telling you lies every day. Anyhow, we fight for it every day here for you. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, the work in Venezuela is getting serious. Energy Secretary Chris Wright on his way there this week to focus on getting that nation's oil industry back up and running and producing oil at normal levels. They're at a fraction right now. Number two, the SAVE Act to protect the integrity of voting in America cleared the House by one vote Wednesday. But that means it's now in the Senate Republicans' hands to get it done. Will they have the guts? That's the question. And number three, I want to begin this hour with those great jobs numbers again. I want to continue with a bit of good news for you today, all right? 130,000 jobs. Now, that might not mean much to you, but it's more than double what the high-end expectation was from the so-called experts. Some said we'd only add 35,000 jobs. Well, 65,000 was the high estimate. Came in double that. And you pair that with the fact that 45,000 government jobs were eliminated. And you still end up with 130,000 net new jobs. Pretty remarkable number. It's quite something, to say the least. It keeps the Trump economy in a place where it keeps outperforming all expectations. So much for these experts. When did we start saying that it's all up to experts? And go back to COVID. Oh, it's the experts say this. Science says it. You know, common sense goes a long way in this world. Real data goes a long way. Projections and expectations and propaganda, no, not so much. The jobs number, killing it in January. Listen.
Now from Cheryl. 130,000 jobs created for the month of January. Wow. The estimate was 70,000. Wow, I was right, Maria. 4.3% is the unemployment rate. The street was looking for 4.4%. Right. This is not the kind of report we expected to see, guys. Let me give you the government jobs picture. That is negative 42,000 on the government side part of the equation. We saw that in the reports previously. We also saw labor force participation rate 62.5%, average hourly earnings 0.41%. That is actually higher than the expectations. So average hourly earnings month to month a little bit higher than expected. Private payrolls 172,000. I had to do a double take. 172,000 private jobs. Guys, that's 100,000 above the estimate. We were looking for 70,000. The average work week, 34.3.
Yeah, there you go. One good number after another. 100,000 higher than expected in the private sector. And that's what's key. The private sector, small business, pass-through entities, corporations, the small companies, the backbone of America, right? That's incredibly important. Here's what else is really important. People are making more money this year than last year, putting more money in their pockets this year than last year. Here it is.
If you look at what's happening with real median income over the last 12 months, that number is up $2,400. So that's very good news. So what that's saying is that people's incomes are rising faster than inflation rate, finally. So we turned the corner there. That's good news.
Yeah. We've turned the corner there. Look, during the Biden years, the loss of income was something like $3,200 a year. It's come back $1,200 or $1,500. Long way to go, a lot of work to do. But on the right track. On the right track. If the Fed can keep his hands off the steering wheel and keep us from going in the ditch, we might be all right. Lower interest rates could move the gross domestic product to 7% or 8%. That's the prediction. That's wild. Those are wild numbers. Meanwhile, the dollar getting stronger. Scott Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasury, explains how the strong dollar is working for all Americans right now. Listen to this.
I often get asked, what does a strong dollar policy mean? And it means that we want to have the fundamentals to keep the dollar strong. So in terms of whether it's FDI or portfolio flows, we want to make the U.S. the most attractive place for capital, which I think we've done through tax certainty. We passed the One Big Beautiful Bill on July 4th, which includes full expensing for corporates. We have regulatory certainty. As I mentioned, I think now this administration, for every one new regulation, has cut 23 regulations.
Yeah, 23 regulations gone for everyone put in place. And look, one of the biggest hindrances is government. The solution isn't government. The problem is government standing in the way of growth. And that's why they're cutting those regulations, making it so we can move forward. And here's something else on the economy. The House yesterday, by the way, late last night, voted 219-211 to take away Donald Trump's ability to put tariffs on the nation of Canada. Foolish move. Foolish move. The tariffs are working. In fact, tariff revenue continued to skyrocket coming into this country at rates we haven't seen in my lifetime. Listen to this.
How much we've been collecting in revenues. And I did this in part because Wilfred's here and he can talk about the UK trade deal. But just this is the monthly numbers. And they have gone up a lot. June is actually set for another big increase of $27 billion. That is money coming into U.S. coffers from tariffs. We are collecting a lot of revenue. So far, guys, $121 billion has flowed into the U.S. government since the start of the fiscal year. It's still a tiny portion of the overall revenues that the U.S. government gets, but it's increasingly a lot, especially we haven't seen it in terms of the consumer paying off higher inflation.
Isn't that frightening? The Democrats says, oh, consumers will be paying all this extra money. Maybe. Coffee's more expensive. I get it. I drink a lot of coffee, I know. But $27 billion. You know what's striking about her comment? $27 billion. Just a tiny fraction of what we do. Tiny fraction. Numbers are so astronomical, it's hard to just even fathom what they are. Pretty incredible. Water alone isn't enough to give serious hydration. Perform Light gives balanced sea salts and electrolytes for better fluid absorption. At the same time, you get the antioxidant boost of the superfoods in its phytonutrient blend. Perform Light helps restore minerals like sodium, magnesium, and calcium, boosting recovery, reducing cramping, and it supports immune health. No sugar, no dyes, just clean performance support only from my good friends at Victory Nutrition International, VNI. Nutrition that actually gets in. Get 20% off right now at vni.life/Gruber. When you subscribe, you'll get 20% off and free shipping forever. vni.life/Gruber. Look, these are the vitamins that Ivy chases me around the kitchen with every day. It's true. Here, take these. I take my vitamins every day, sometimes under duress, but I feel great. vni.life/Gruber. Promo code Gruber is going to save you 20%. And if you get a subscription, free shipping forever. All right, I'll take a break and be right back. Oh, yeah. It's always good to see you here. Remember, you can follow SteveGruber.com. You can get all sorts of great articles there. Send me emails, anything you want to talk about ever. Anything that's on your mind there, we've got you covered. So send me an email. Tell me what's on your mind, and we'll talk about it. Join me now, Paul Miller, CPA, expert accountant in New York City and Queens. And he founded Miller & Company, LLP, all the way back in 1997. And the New York City CPA warns at 5 things to check before you hit submit. It's tax time, of course, and it's important. Paul, good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. Glad to have you here. I know you got up early, went to the gym early because you are a dedicated young man, and I appreciate that, Paul. We work hard here, and so everybody else. Everybody worked hard this year. The one big beautiful bill means, and I've been seeing this on social media already, people getting checks, and they're like, I can't believe how big it is. Can't believe the size of their refunds. That's pretty good news. But what are the 5 things you got to do before you hit submit?
I think you have to really look over your return. The first thing I would say is that you want to make sure you have a bank account and a routing number, because the IRS is not really sending paper refunds. So that's something that everybody should pay attention to. There's a lot of big things. This is going to be a year where it's exciting, where you're seeing big refunds. So people are itemizing, and you want to make sure that you have your itemization together, like all of your state and local taxes,
right,
your charity, your medical expenses, all of that. There are a lot of credits. Your college credit that is out there now is a good one. Also, the child care is a good credit this year. It's enhanced.
Yeah, I always play it really close. What you just said to me is kind of interesting, Paul. I didn't realize that the IRS doesn't send checks anymore. I haven't gotten a refund in a number of years because I play it as tight as I can and usually owe a little bit at the end. I figure the government's got enough money, they don't need to use mine for the whole year. But for some people, these refunds, and like you said, the direct deposits, they are game changers. Some could be as high as $20,000 or more. I mean, these are game changers for working families, aren't they?
I couldn't agree with you more. I think this is going to be a great year. I think everyone's going to be really happy and have a lot of extra money that they didn't count on. I think it's going to be a big surprise.
Yeah. What are some of the common mistakes people make? One of the things here, the earned income tax credit, you mentioned in your notes here to me. To me, that's automatic. And with all these automated systems, if somebody doesn't have an accountant, I have one because we have some businesses, so we take an account and let them make sure that it's right, and I can blame them if something's wrong. But they're all automated. AI does all this now, doesn't it? I mean, how do you miss something?
You'd be surprised, right? Like, people don't have communications. People don't talk with the accountant. And sometimes, in a lot of instances, you're extracting information. So the way AI is working today is what we put in is what we get out. And if you don't have the information or you're not aware of it, you'll be deprived of a deduction. It happens a lot. People don't think about it. Putting in the computer software is going to calculate, right? So if you're entitled to a retirement credit, you're entitled to a health care, to a child tax credit. So I really think it's important that, well, you might use an online version. If you don't really communicate and you have a sophisticated return, I think it's your best advantage to talk to a licensed preparer.
Yeah. What if you realize after the fact, Paul, that you didn't do everything you were supposed to, or, you go back? People don't file amended returns, but if you realize, hey, I forgot the earned income tax credit from last year or the year before, you do have a period of time where you can amend your return, and that money is still there for you for a period of time, isn't it?
Yeah, the statute of limitations is 3 years from the filing of the return. So I'm constantly looking at returns. Could you look at it and see if I missed anything? It's a very common statement, like you said, Steve.
Yeah. This is important. Earned income tax credits, self-employment credits, standard versus itemized, retirement credits, dependent credits. All of these things are available now to people. And if you're going to do it on your own, take time. Don't rush through it, I think is what I'm hearing here. Do not rush, Paul, because if you do, you might end up with some issues, or you might miss out on money that you're owed. And you may not even realize it. And look, everybody needs every penny they can get. That's why I try to play mine as close as I can to not owe any taxes, but not get any in return either. I play it as close as we possibly can. All of these things are important, aren't they?
I agree 100%. I'm in your camp where not giving the government a loan is a very good thing.
Yeah.
I try to convince people to not take out maximum withholding, but a lot of Americans use it as a forced withholding, like it's a surprise. So they get it at the end of the year, and a lot of people have the money earmarked for what they're going to use it for. So it's
Right.
that's an interesting dynamic. But I'm in your camp where let's not give the government any more money.
Right. Not ahead of time. I don't need to give them an interest-free loan at any time. All right. Last word to you, Paul. Things to think about before people hit submit. Last word to you.
I think if you run it through an AI program, that's great. I would seriously consider valuing a paid preparer and getting benefits that you may not know. A lot of people have a lot of things that they miss or they're not aware of, and I think it's critical because it's a lot of money and it really adds up. You'd be surprised.
I really appreciate it. Paul Miller, CPA, New York City. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate you.
Thank you very much. All right, guys, here's what I want to know from you. All right. What is your tax return? I just saw, and I've seen this a couple times, but I saw a lady yesterday. She submitted her tax return on Thursday. The money was in her account on Tuesday. She said, I've never seen it happen that fast. Remarkably fast, she said. And so, not somebody I know, just somebody that popped up on social media. Couldn't believe it, and couldn't believe the amount of money that she was actually entitled to. So, cutting taxes, making tax returns come back really fast, that's a really big key to people because they do count on that money coming back. Some, they say, well, I'll have forced savings, if you will, throughout the year, and then I'll get my $5,000, $10,000, $20,000. Send me an email, stevegruber.com. How did it work for you? Was it fast? Did you get more money than you have in the last few years? I'm just curious. What's your experience with the IRS this year? stevegruber.com, the place to send me that email. I look forward to hearing from you. Might even read it here on the air. I'll take a break and be right back. It is The Steve Gruber Show. Well, I'm really excited to share with you that coming Monday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time, Forgotten America is going to drop on YouTube. The new podcast from myself and Ivy. Kyle Rittenhouse is our first guest, a guy who was demonized, put on trial for his life after he shot and killed 2 people, wounded a third, defending himself during riots in Kenosha, Wisconsin several years ago now. He went away. He just disappeared because he said he couldn't take the death threats. He has PTSD, as you can imagine. He was only 17 years old. He told us that he shouldn't even have been there, that it was a mistake. He was a kid. He should have stayed home. He didn't, and it changed his life, and probably not for the better, really. Here's a preview of what you're going to hear. Is your life still, if you go out in public and run into the wrong group of people, still in danger?
Well, absolutely. I get countless death threats every single day. Thank God the FBI here in Fort Worth is great at investigating these threats and following through with them and making sure that justice is served with the people that want to not use freedom of speech, because it is not a First Amendment right to threaten to kill somebody, which people do not understand. That is domestic terrorism.
Yeah, domestic terrorism. Fort Worth is where he lives now, in that area. He's married now. Says he carries, so does his wife. He said, we have no choice. Obviously, he's a Second Amendment supporter based on his experiences, but It is a fascinating conversation insofar as he was thrust into the national spotlight, and he was a polarizing figure, still is, based on what he just said there. He gets death threats every day. His life is in danger every day. But he works closely with the FBI to run down the threats to make sure that he doesn't get killed. But he lives well, it's a dangerous place that he lives every day. Anyhow, Forgotten America, the podcast, drops this coming Monday, 9 a.m., and that'll be every Monday at 9 a.m. after that. And we look forward to it. It's something we've been putting together for a long time. We're really excited to share it with you. We've got an incredible series of guests coming your way, and I think you're going to like it. All you have to do is go to YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe, and you get all things Gruber. Go to YouTube, hit the like button, and subscribe, and you will be hooked up to this program, to the Forgotten American podcast, and something else very exciting coming in the next few weeks, a bit of a history lesson. You'll know what we mean when we get there. I'll be right back. All right, back to it now. As we continue to bring you the conversations you're not going to hear everywhere else. Claire Abernathy is an independent women ambassador and detransitioner. Claire and her mother's story was told together for the first time through the Independent Women's Features Identity Crisis series. It is a story that's going to be told more and more, not just from Claire, but from others, as we come out of this strange time in American history. Claire, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Greatly appreciate it. All right, give the folks here your story, the background, the transgender, the transitioning, and then realizing it was a mistake.
I had sort of a rough go of it early in life. I had some traumatic early sexual experiences. I was diagnosed as ADHD, but it's always been suspected I might have autism. And I fell into the wrong crowds, you could say, online and in my peer groups. And when I was 12 years old, I started identifying as transgender. And within a couple appointments of seeing a gender-affirming therapist, I was referred to a clinic who performed an hour-long assessment and put me on testosterone a week after my 14th birthday. And then 6 months later, I underwent a double mastectomy.
At 14?
And at 14.
Okay.
And a half.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of brainwashing involved, and it's a hard thing to come out of. It was a couple years for me before I started to realize what was done and that it wasn't right. When I was 17, I started pursuing breast reconstruction, and none of the surgeons I contacted would consult with me. They said that I needed to be 18.
So let me get this straight. A radical double mastectomy was appropriate for somebody 14 and a half. They'd go this direction. But in order to do it the other direction, to restore your humanity, I suppose, they refused. That's remarkable to me, but I want to back up to something else you said. You said you had a gender-affirming counselor. What does that mean?
A counselor who goes along with whatever you say about your gender, basically.
And supported you. Didn't matter that you were 14. Didn't matter you couldn't drive a car, you couldn't buy a beer, you couldn't do anything, but you could make life-altering decisions that involved, well, not too long after that, surgery, life-altering surgery. Now, let me ask you this. A recent case, as you obviously know, $2 million awarded to somebody in a similar position as yourself, sued the surgeon and the counselor, and won $2 million. Is this something you're considering? Is this a path that's going to be taken by... I mean, the problem is this, Claire. Nobody knows the numbers because nobody reports the numbers. Is it 10,000? Is it 100,000? How many young people in America have been disfigured, brutalized by this system of gender-affirming care? How many? And can you pursue legal action?
To answer your first question, currently I cannot pursue legal action due to the statute of limitations in Texas. It's 2 years, so I would have had to file that lawsuit at or before the age of 16. But to answer your second question, according to insurance billing information, there have been at least 5,700 mastectomies performed on minor girls in America. But that does not include surgeons who fraudulently billed them as breast reductions or treatment for boys with gynecomastia. And it also doesn't include people like me who paid out of pocket. And it doesn't include people who went through Kaiser Permanente.
How old are you now?
21.
And you went through this journey over and back again with your mother, from what I understand. What is her situation now? What is her condition?
She's hanging in there. I talk to her frequently. We don't live together anymore, but she has a job that she likes, and she manages her own feelings about all of this. It's a complicated situation for us.
Well, she was told the same things. Now, I don't know your mother, obviously, but in similar stories, I've heard parents saying, We were told this was the right thing to do. We were told we had to go down this path to prevent our child from committing suicide. So when this counselor, this gender-affirming counselor, is reaffirming everything that you say or feel or whatever, they're telling your mother the same thing, right? They were leading you both down this path, would be my guess. Am I right?
Yeah, when I started with this identification at 12, my parents weren't affirming. They didn't go along with it. It wasn't until a year or so had passed and I was continuing in this identification that they decided to take me to a therapist. And I saw two different gender therapists before I was referred to the clinic. And both of them talked to me for 45 minutes, an hour, and came away and told my parents, your child is transgender and you have to affirm her or the most likely outcome is suicide.
So the messaging
They were
was
asked,
consistent. And 1 hour, a 1 hour meeting is enough to determine we're going to make these life-altering decisions. Let me ask you this. You said you fell in with the wrong crowd. What role did social media play in persuading you, pushing you down this path towards the double mastectomy and the hormone therapy?
I was given access to the internet at a very early age. I was regularly engaging in like Tumblr and Instagram, starting around 9 or 10 years old. And, you know, when children are going through puberty, when they're figuring out who they are and sort of what groups they want to associate with as they get older, it's a vulnerable time, and I had some same-sex attraction, and so I got into these like LGBT circles on, like I said, Tumblr and Instagram.
Right. I think what you're saying is you were susceptible. You were susceptible to the messaging, and it was becoming consistent from the counselor to social media. It was a sales pitch to me, as well. It sounds like Claire. I have to leave it there for today, but I want to talk to you much longer, much more in detail. I'd like to invite you onto our podcast called Outdoor Forgotten America and have you spend some time with us because your story needs to be told because it's heartbreaking. I appreciate you scratching the surface here with us today, but I'd like to talk to you in detail coming up, if we could do that. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate it. How many of these stories are out there, my friends? How many? How many people are back living in the shadows because once you detransition, you're forgotten? That's the sad part. I'll be back. All right, so this is strange. A headline that I shared with you at the top of the program. Gallup, the polling company, has long been considered an important purveyor of information. Gallup polling has long been considered by many to be an important company to gauge the temperature, the feeling of America and Americans, right? But over the last few years, Gallup, like so many polling companies, lost their way, put their thumb on the scale, my opinion, and told you things like Kamala Harris is going to win, Hillary Clinton is going to win. Not true, of course. Not true at all. Well, here's the headline: Gallup ends presidential approval polling. This is unusual to me, surprising, and you have to ask why. They've been doing presidential polling to find out what people thought of the president since 1938, when they first asked about the approval of Franklin Roosevelt's job performance. It goes all the way back to 1938. All right? And they're stopping. And you have to ask yourself, why is it? Do they not like the numbers they're getting? Do they not like the fact that Donald Trump has a hard floor at about 42 or 44%? Do they not like that? Because he does. You know, and people like Gallup will come out and say, well, Donald Trump's approval ratings are 38%. No, I can assure you that's not true. He has a hard floor somewhere in the low 40s. So when it comes to election days, he only has to overcome a few points to be successful, which was obviously true in 2024 when he won all 7 swing states, and he won the popular vote and won with 312 electoral votes, right? We know that. But Gallup confirming the company will cease publishing individual politicians' favorability and approval ratings. And here's what they say is the reason why. It reflects an evolution in how Gallup focuses its public research and thought leadership. Please. They stopped doing it because nobody trusts their numbers anymore. Nobody trusts Gallup anymore, or a host of these other polling companies. I mean, you look at, when you hear a poll, you go, yeah, okay, whatever. There are about 3 that are consistent, right? Rasmussen is right, and a couple of others. And that's it. That's it. You look back at 2016, 2020, 2024. You look at the polling numbers, and you will know that, you know, games were absolutely played in 2020. Look at what's happening in Georgia now as they continue to uncover the fraud. There's something like 37,000 votes. I saw this yesterday or the day before. 37,000 votes connected to no voter at all. Really. We were told that Joe Biden won Georgia by 10,000 votes. We were told that John Ossoff was elected to the United States Senate as a Democrat by a similarly thin margin in 2020. Actually, in 2020, Ossoff was in second place. The Republican failed to crease 50%, so they had a runoff, and Ossoff won the election. In quotations. So here's Gallup throwing in the towel, saying we're not going to do this anymore. Our commitment is to long-term, methodologically sound research on issues and conditions that shape people's lives. That work will continue through the Gallup Poll Social Series, the Gallup Quarterly Business Review, the World Poll, and our portfolio of U.S. and global research. Gallup lost its integrity. That's my belief. All right, that's what I believe has happened. In other headlines that you might need to know, Trump is pulling federalized National Guard troops from several cities, not Washington, D.C., Memphis, or New Orleans. But he is pulling out of Portland, L.A., and Chicago. Good luck, guys. You're going to need it. I mean, you look at Minneapolis, for example. They only have 600 police officers left or less since the summer of Floyd. Since the summer of Floyd in 2020, they're down to 600 sworn officers, or just under. There are hundreds of police officers. I mean, would you want to be a police officer in the city of Minneapolis, Minnesota today, where you're told you're not allowed to help federal officers enforce immigration law, where you have people rioting in your streets and you're told don't do anything about that? And if you do become a police officer, they spit on you, give you the finger, call you names, all of that. Who would want that job? You want to get paid $65,000 to get targeted, attacked, possibly shot because you're a police officer?
Well, it must be really bad because it says that at least starting in 2024, starting salaries for Minneapolis police officers is $90,000 a year.
Okay, $90,000.
But it must be really bad if they're not getting people
to get shot at, spit on. $90,000. It's more than I thought. I said 65, so I guess I was wrong. That's the starting salary, $90,000?
Yeah, starting with top earners reaching over $139,000.
And they still can't keep people. I mean, ask yourself, Anthony, would you do the job?
I mean, $90,000 is not bad, but I'm not going there.
No, or be a police officer in any major city.
No, probably not.
No, I mean, it's yeah, there's your problem. The left has demonized law enforcement in this country at every turn. Defund the police. Federal officers are Nazis and Gestapo and all this other nonsense. Not really a great billboard. Hey, come be a police officer in Minneapolis where you can be insulted, attacked, and if you do your job and shoot somebody, we'll put you on trial and not the criminal. Yeah, that's really quite a job posting. Anyhow, we'll take a break and be back with sports after this. right, let's check in on sports with Brock Palmbush, shall we?
With a look at sports, I'm Brock Palmbush. An extremely busy night in the NBA last night. 14 games were played. Winners included Detroit, Cleveland, Minnesota, and Oklahoma City. By the way, the NBA handed down suspensions for the fight that occurred in the Detroit-Charlotte game earlier this week. Pistons forward Isaiah Stewart got a 7-game suspension, while Pistons center Jalen Duren got a 2-game ban. Hornets forwards Miles Bridges and Moussa Diabate each got 4-game suspensions. All 4 began their suspensions last night. In men's college basketball, number 2 Michigan, number 6 Connecticut, and number 14 Florida all won, but 20th-ranked Clemson was upset. In women's college basketball, number 1 Connecticut, number 2 UCLA, and number 15 Iowa were all victorious. And at the Winter Olympics in Italy, American Jordan Stoltz won gold in the men's 1,000-meter speed skating competition. That's a look at sports. Back to you, Steve.
Yeah, he also set an Olympic record there, Brock, did Stoltz. What a machine.
Outstanding.
Yeah. Apollo Ono, I saw, Apollo Ono from a few Olympics ago, who was
the short track speed skater, pack skater.
Just a stud. Saying that this particular individual, Stoltz, he says he's inhuman. He said he's just different because it's not just that he has skill sets in all these different races and distances. Homeschooled kid, by the way. Just believes he can win every race. He's incredibly, competition is his thing. He's like Secretariat on race day. You know what I mean? Just an incredible athlete.
Okay.
I mean, but
that's impressive.
set the Olympic record against the second best speed skater in the world, and he was behind coming into the last lap, and he just blew past him. I don't know if you saw the race.
I didn't, unfortunately. Now I have to go back and look at it.
Yeah, social media, it's a beautiful thing.
There you go.
Yeah, it really is. The guy is, and he's got a smile on his face, homeschooled guy, and just a different kind of athlete. And so he's worth looking at. And look, that's why I watch the Olympics. I don't want to hear your political BS, all right? I don't.
There's been some pushback on that, as you know.
There should be.
Yeah. By the way, one other thing: the U.S. men's Olympic hockey team.
Yeah.
They open their play this afternoon against Latvia. They play this afternoon U.S. time.
We're gonna
as they look to
crush
go
them.
as they look to go for the gold medal, and they've said anything less than gold is a disappointment.
Well done, Brock. Well done. After the break, a mass school shooting in Canada. The killer, a transgender individual. We'll talk about it coming up.
From the heart of America, where hard work, freedom, and faith still define who we are. From the farms to the factories, from small towns to city streets, this is the fight for the soul of our nation.
We're watching Democrats attack democracy. Do not be fooled.
The strength, the grit, the greatness of the American spirit, all right here.
The left wanted power, not peace, but there's a resistance rising. A generation saying enough, enough. We've tried it their way, and it failed.
The Steve Gruber Show with your host, Steve Gruber, starts right now.
All right, back into it now. Fighting for you from the Foxhole of Freedom as we do every single day. Glad to have you on board for the conversation. Another brand new hour. Here are 3 things you need to know this hour. More taxes on the way to those who vape and use tobacco products, to pay for the sins of state spending. Number 2, a union says learning about the Olympics means discussions on transgenderism, police brutality, and racism. Really? We'll get back to that. And number 3, whenever there's a school shooting in America, the coverage is 24 hours a day for days on end. But when there's a mass school shooting in Canada, as happened in the last few days, the media here tends to ignore it, especially when the shooter is once again identified as transgender. The suspected shooter, Jesse Van Rootseller, 18, died from an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound. 9 people dead. At the mass shooting happened Tuesday, Tumbler Ridge Secondary School, British Columbia. That's in the west coast of Canada, for those of you who do not know. Police identified the suspect as an 18-year-old transgender woman, which means it's a dude, who allegedly killed 2 of his family members at home before opening fire at school. The Tumbler Ridge Royal Canadian Mounted Police confirmed to Fox News Digital that officers responded to reports of an active shooter 1:20 p.m. local time Tuesday. While searching the school, officers found 6 victims dead from gunshot wounds, and the alleged shooter, identified as 18-year-old Jesse Van Rootseller, from suicide. Van Rootseller had attended the school before dropping out about 4 years ago. Identified as female but was a guy. Began transitioning 6 years ago. A history of mental health-related contact with police. Access to weapons stored at home. Police have been to the home multiple times in recent years for mental health checks, during which weapons were seized under the criminal code but later returned following a petition from the lawful owner. 2 firearms. A long gun and a modified handgun recovered inside the school by police. Neither weapon registered to Van Rootseller, who previously had a firearms license but had expired in 2024. The 6 victims found at the school identified as a 39-year-old female teacher, 3 12-year-old students, 2 male students, 12 and 13. 2 additional victims found inside a residence identified as the suspect's 39-year-old mother and 11-year-old stepbrother. Those 2 victims were airlifted to a hospital with serious and life-threatening injuries. One of the wounded, a woman previously believed to have died, is actually alive, lowering the death toll from initially 10 to 9. 25 others with non-life-threatening injuries taken for assessment at local medical centers. No additional suspects or shooters. Look, here's the thing. You look at the shooting in Nashville and several other places involving transgender shooters here in America. This is a problem. Violent transgender killers. Stop playing games with mental health. Stop playing games with mental health. That is the takeaway here. I'm surprised that in Canada, they're able to identify the person as transgender. Public safety is an absolute priority. Well, if that's true, Canada, what are you doing? Why are you playing these games with a mental health crisis? Affirming things that are just make-believe and fantasy. 9 people are dead. 25 others injured. 1 still fighting for her life. We'll see if she makes it. All right. Speaking of that, according to a Michigan teachers union, They promoted a lesson plan for teachers that promoted NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick, former NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick, and discussions on terms like police brutality, racism, and transgender while teaching students about the Olympics. The Michigan chapter of the American Federation of Teachers sent out a February 9 email that stated, check out Share My Lessons collection on the history of the Olympics. The lesson was for kids in grades 3 through 5. It includes a link to a book titled Enough, 20 Protesters Who Changed America. The AFT lesson plan page links to a page from the Anti-Defamation League that features the book as its book of the month. The ADL states this collection of featured books is from Books Matter, the best kid lit on bias, diversity, and social justice. The book teaches about bias and prejudice, promotes respect for diversity, encourages social action, and reinforces themes addressed in education programs of a World of Difference Institute. Sounds nice, doesn't it? The book describes Kaepernick as taking a knee for black people while playing for the San Francisco 49ers. Kaepernick took a knee during the national anthem during an NFL game back in 2016 to protest police brutality, the same year that 5 black Dallas police officers were shot dead protecting a Black Lives Matter protest in that city. He wore socks with police pigs on them that year, his final season in the NFL. Kaepernick compared the NFL draft to a slave auction in October of 2021. Kaepernick has said he would still like to play in the NFL. He made $51 million in salary during his career from 2011 to 2016. The lesson plan, by the way, also has these bonus educational points: racism, transgenderism, slavery, unions, and police brutality. This is such crap that is being, this filth is going through our schools like a manure spreader through a field, slinging it everywhere. It's unconscionable. It really is. It's unconscionable. One other quick note. Governor Whitmer says that adding tax on tobacco and vape products should cover the cost of Michigan's Medicaid shortfall, reviving a tax idea she's failed to push through before. Yep. When in doubt, tax more. That's the governor's plan. It's expected in her budget plan this week following Medicaid financing changes that enacted under the Trump administration that restrict certain state funding mechanisms used to leverage federal dollars. And so, when in doubt, get the tax ideas out, apparently. This part of the program brought to you by our good friends at Wolverine Water, Michigan's premier water treatment company. Wolverine Water has been around for 75 years. If you're tired of hard water ruining your appliances, staining your sinks, drying out your skin, well, at Wolverine Water, they've got you covered, delivering pure, clean, great-tasting water for Michigan families for 75 years. Doesn't matter, well water, city water, the American-made water softeners and filtration systems are custom-built to fix your water problems. Plus, they're good folks. Go to WolverineWaterSystems.com today for a free in-home water test. WolverineWaterSystems.com. Do it today, a free in-home water test. WolverineWaterSystems.com. Good partners of this program. They've been in my home long before I ever did this program. WolverineWaterSystems.com. I'll be back with Eric Metaxas after this. 250 years we've been here. 250 years. Will we make another 250? Well, not if the leftists have anything to do with it. But that's why we have to teach kids the truth about America. Take works like The People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn and throw it in the trash where it belongs because it's fiction, not history. As an example, joining me, Eric Metaxas, New York Times best-selling author and host of the Eric Metaxas Show. He also is at President's Fellow at Cornerstone University in Grand Rapids, Michigan. This week, Eric, nice to have you on the program.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me, Steve.
You know, we got to teach people the truth, Eric, and I know you're working hard to do that every day on your program, and you're there in Grand Rapids this week talking about free speech, faith, the founders. These are the blueprints that not all but most colleges, high schools, and elementary schools ignore every day. How do we turn this around?
Well, you turn it around, first of all, by highlighting, as I will now do, the places that are doing it right. Cornerstone University in Grand Rapids. I have to tell you, Cornerstone wasn't always doing it right. Under the leadership of their new president, Dr. Moreno, they are standing boldly for America, for patriotism, for actual Christian faith. So many so-called Christian universities are not really doing that. I mean, are simply not doing that, and it's shameful. And so when I find a Christian college or university that's doing it, I'm all in. I'm thrilled. I'm surprised, and I want to help them. And so I'm a distinguished presidential scholar here. I come here every semester for a few days. They're heroes, and folks like this need to be supported. People need to know who the good guys are, because there are tons of universities. I'm not even talking about the secular universities that are insane, but tons of so-called Christian universities that are really super wobbly, that they would never invite, for example, Eric Metaxas to speak, even though I might not say anything
well, look at yourself.
Incendiary.
You look like a bad
What's
guy.
That?
I mean, you look at yourself. You look like a bad guy. I mean, here's the thing.
Yes.
I'm being facetious, of course. But I don't remember the name of this university in California. I think it was last year. Catholic University putting up Islamic symbols, taking down images of Christ because they might be divisive. These are supposed to be Catholic, Christian universities, whatever, that are removing all evidence of Christian belief in this country. It's shameful, isn't it?
Yes, it is shameful. And look, they're deeply confused. Just because somebody says I'm a Catholic or I'm a Christian, that means nothing.
Correct.
You don't know what they believe until you hear them, and you start thinking, well, you know, there are Catholics online today, people claiming to be Catholic, which makes them pro-Palestine, and they hate Israel, and they call anybody who supports Israel a Zionist. Whatever they say, I'm Catholic. It's like, no, you're not Catholic. All the Catholics I know.
The big one, pro-abortion Catholics. Don't forget that one, right?
I was just going to say, and a lot of times, and I said this on my X account today, Catholic leaders need to call out Catholics, people who claim to be Catholic, who are pro-abortion. Joe Biden, he was not called out by the Catholic leadership. Nancy Pelosi, they hide behind the label Catholic. They're not Catholic. Faithful Catholics are staunchly pro-life. So we're dealing with, you know, you have to have discernment in this day and age, because you have a lot of self-serving people using terms. They do it with the term Christian. I guess the governor of Kentucky, Bashir, whatever his name is, was saying that the Bible supports, you know, mutilating children, transgenderism.
Stuff. I saw that. That's insane. I was in the nation's capital. I was in Washington here recently, and I don't remember which giant church it was that has the rainbow flag all the way down the steps, right? I mean, come on. This is not a church, is it?
Well, this is, again, there's always been a price you have to pay. If you really want to follow Jesus and say, I'm a Christian, you're going to have to pay a price. You're going to have to go against the culture. I wrote at great length about Dietrich Bonhoeffer in Nazi Germany. Many of the so-called Christians said, you know what? I don't want any trouble. I don't want to swim against the culture. It might cost me something. So they kept their mouths shut. Well, then you're complicit with evil. And you really have to choose. Am I going to stand with God and trust God, or am I going to go with the zeitgeist, go with the culture? And a lot of people who think of themselves as Christians, they drift along, or they go to a church that does the same thing, that doesn't talk about anything controversial, because somehow they think that that has nothing to do with me or my faith. But people in the 1850s didn't want to talk about slavery because, you know what? There are people in my church. There's a big tither. He sits in the back. He's a big pro-slavery guy. I don't want to talk about that. You have a moral obligation to speak the truth and to trust God with your finances, with your career. And so it separates the sheep from the goats. People who are willing to speak up, or people who are unwilling to speak up. That's where we are right now.
Very true. You look at somebody like William Wilberforce. He was not afraid to speak up against slavery in England. Got it done 3 days before he died because he was able to go against the current. Look, you have to stand up to social media. You have to stand up to pretend Christians and pretend Catholics because they're not real. I agree with you, Eric.
I don't know if you know this, Steve. I wrote a biography of William Wilberforce, the man you just mentioned. It's called Amazing Grace, and it is one of the greatest stories, and I'm glad you're aware of it. William Wilberforce was a hero, and he stood against the abomination, the wickedness of the slave trade because he was a Christian.
That's right.
And it wasn't popular, but he fought and he fought and he fought. It's the same thing standing against abortion. It's the same thing standing against transgender lunacy, which is harming children.
It is.
This lunatic who just murdered his family and so on and so forth. You have a Canadian newscasters saying she.
It's not
so they're
she,
going
guys.
Along with it.
It's
they're
a dude.
Going along. It's a dude.
Yeah. It's a dude. Eric, let me ask you this. How can people find you? Cornerstone University, thumbs up. Go ahead.
EricMetaxas.com. I have a new book, a big book coming out on the American Revolution, not the Howard Zinn version. I'm very excited about the Supercentennial 250. It's called Supercentennial in case anybody wants to know the term. It is very exciting to celebrate America, to celebrate who we are, what it means to be an American. We want to spread true liberty around the world. Praise God.
Praise God. Eric Metaxas, thank you.
God bless you.
There you have it. We'll be right back. All right, I want to take a moment and remind you that coming up Monday morning at 9 a.m., Forgotten America, the new episode will drop on YouTube. Steve Gruber on YouTube. It's everything Gruber. It's this program, any of the specials we do, the documentaries. You can learn about, well, I've got a new book in process as well that'll be out here the next few weeks, I hope. These things take time. But Forgotten America, Kyle Rittenhouse, the guest on Monday. Again, it drops at 9 a.m. on YouTube. Here's a sneak peek at what you'll see.
They wanted to use me as an example, and they wanted to put the right to self-defense in America on trial as a way to erode at our God-given rights to defend ourselves. And they started with Kyle Rittenhouse being pursued, but it was really the entire country on trial, saying if I'm not allowed to defend myself, no one else is.
We'll have a complete conversation. Myself and Ivy, we sit down with him for about an hour. And I'm really glad and excited to kick off the podcast, Forgotten America. A lot of voices out there. Big stories, important stories, stories that you don't hear in the mainstream media. We'll cover those. And we'll go deep and get real perspective. You heard him there. They wanted to put the entire Second Amendment on trial. They did. And they lost. Kyle Rittenhouse was acquitted of all charges in the case going back to Kenosha. He killed 2 people. Wounded a third. Said he was very clear. Wish I had never been there. I was 17 years old. I had no business being there. It's an enlightening conversation, and we invite you to join us. So all you need to do is go to YouTube, become a subscriber, hit the like button, of course. We appreciate it when you do that, but become a subscriber on YouTube, and you have access to all of this, the brand new Forgotten America podcast series, which I think is going to be head-turning. I think you're really going to like the conversations we have. In fact, speaking of what Eric was just talking about, detransitioning, the transgender movement in America, it met its peak at about 2023, but the long-term damage to this country is still there. We'll have some guests on that topic as well on Forgotten America. Again, it's 9 a.m. Monday morning. Don't miss it. Kyle Rittenhouse, you'll enjoy that. Coming up after the break, Perry Johnson is going to join me, a very successful businessman who is running for governor in Michigan in 2026. We'll hear his story after the break here on The Steve Gruber Show. $1 billion is going to be spent in Michigan on the midterm elections. That's the predictions out of the PR firms in Northern Virginia that direct a lot of that political money. It's because Michigan is critically important. Open governor seat, open Senate seat. Obviously, the race for control of the U.S. House of Representatives, all on the ballot in 2026. My next guest is a self-made businessman, problem solver who has spent his life helping companies cut waste, improve quality. He's also an author and he is running for governor himself. Perry Johnson joining me. Perry, nice to have you back on the program.
Delighted to be back.
All right, so we've got some problems here. Governor Whitmer came into office with a $9 billion surplus. $9 billion, 9.2 actually, I think, to be specific. Now she needs to raise taxes on tobacco and vaping to cover the shortfalls of Medicaid. Why is it that our Democratic friends always turn to taxing people more to pay for their follies?
Well, they love to spend your money. I mean, isn't it very easy to spend somebody else's money? Think about it. Give me your money and then I'll tell you how to spend it. I don't know that you could really orchestrate anything quite as bad as what's happened in Michigan when you take a look at some of the things that we've done. Do you realize that in 1 year alone, we threw away over $11 billion by overpaying Medicaid and unemployment? That we only collected $11.3 billion in taxes the entire year. When I say that we're absurd, we're absurd. We have a situation where we're trying to increase the speed of the Amtrak train, and we spend almost $1 billion to try to increase it 10 miles an hour, and we couldn't even achieve that. So we have so many things. We had a situation that developed where they had all of these so-called daycare centers that they're giving money to. They're actually being run, they were run by illegals. And when we went to point out 77 of these, they suddenly disappeared the next day. We couldn't find them. Now, I don't know that we have not have detail on these 77. We just find it very strange that when we go and ask about them, that they're suddenly gone.
Right.
Well, we need to, I mean.
There's a whole list of things. When I look at Governor Whitmer's tenure as governor of the state, first of all, she didn't fix the damn roads. The one thing she promised, we fix about 1% of the roads per year. So in 100 years, long after you and I have exited the planet, maybe they'll be better, maybe they won't. But she didn't do the one job. So you look at all the COVID crackdowns and the draconian restrictions on people here in Michigan that were just abysmal. But I want to look at another thing. That's energy. We have these data centers being proposed and built in Michigan like they are around the country, take tremendous amounts of energy. And yet Governor Whitmer signed a law that by 2040, every bit of energy we get in Michigan is supposed to come from windmills and solar panels and such things. It's a fool's errand, is it not?
It's actually stupid. And keep in mind, when we have these data centers, they do not really provide employment here because they're a one-shot deal. You build them and we don't really need people. So when I talk about mismanagement, I don't know if you wrote a book on how to mismanage a state that we could do a more effective job of mismanagement than she has done. So in many ways, but I've spent my entire life bringing quality and efficiency to companies. That's basically what we do. Perry Johnson Registrars, Perry Johnson Laboratory Accreditation, Perry Johnson Food Safety. We operate all over the world in 67 countries. And I want to take that skill set and bring that to Michigan because I think it's time that we eliminate the state income tax, that we have a way of having a more efficient overall operation while improving the quality. Keep in mind, some of the stuff that is absolutely bizarre. We are fifth in spending in schools, literally fifth in the country with roughly $25,000 a student, 25.6, I think it is. And yet we're about 44th in our effectiveness. So when I talk about disproportionate spending, we throw money away, and yet we do one of the worst jobs possible. And education is so important. At one time, people used to flock to Michigan. You think about what life was like, maybe it was 100 years ago, 90 years ago, you would have people all over the world coming here because we were a bastion of opportunity for the middle class. For the first time in history, a person from the middle class could come to a state, earn $5, literally $5 a day, which enabled them to have a house, a car, and a great way of life.
Yeah, you mentioned something there, Perry, that I want to circle something that you said there. Income tax. I think Michigan was the only state in America last year that raised personal income tax. Every other state, they're either eliminating it or reducing it. Michigan raised the income tax. Thank you to our friends across the aisle. I mean, you look at the flocking of people to Florida, Texas, Tennessee. There's a reason for that, isn't it?
Absolutely. In fact, Tennessee, look at that. Tennessee, just like Michigan, was losing population year after year for over 10 years. They eliminate the income tax and suddenly they're booming. Where did Ford put their new plant? Ford Motor Company, the bastion, really, of Michigan, one of the major fulcrums of Michigan. They didn't build their plant here. They built their plant in Tennessee. So when we take a look at our right to work law, which really coerces people to join the union, even if they don't want to, they have to pay these dues. We take a look at the fact that we're escalating income tax. We make it so bad for companies. All of these things discourage people. We have 550,000 students that go to school here within a 50-mile radius of Metro Detroit. Do you know that about 40% of them are going to be gone within 5 years? And why? Because we don't give them a reason to stay.
Let me ask you this.
This phenomenal state.
Let me ask you this. Donald Trump doing a lot of things to bring businesses back to the United States seems to be working. But as you point out, the new John Deere plant, I think, is in North Carolina. The new Ford plant is in Tennessee. The new plant for this and that and every other company is not in Michigan. And right to work, we're the first state in the history of this country to get rid of right to work, a chance for people to go to work and not pay for something they don't agree with. All these jobs coming back, we're not getting any of it. What are we going to do to change that?
Well, elect me governor. I mean, you think about this. You have all these people running, but I am a person, granted, I may be too conservative. I'm the most conservative of the bunch. I admit that in every possible way, idealistically and economically. But I've spent my entire life bringing quality and efficiency to companies. Now, if you were going to have somebody do surgery on your mother's heart, would you pick somebody who is a dentist or an attorney? Would you have them go, or would you pick somebody who is a heart surgeon, a cardiac surgeon? I am the person that's been doing this kind of thing all my life, and I'm donating my time. I have this idyllic life. I admit I have the most perfect life in the world. I have 3 wonderful kids. 2 are 17, 1 is 22. I have the most wonderful wife in the world. I have the most perfect life in the world. And it's about time that I give something back. And so I'm donating my time to Michigan. I will have the governor's salary be $1. I think it's time that I make Michigan the great state that it should be.
All right,
and
real quickly.
My skill set to eliminate the income tax and
good place to start. If people like what they're hearing, Perry, we got about 20 seconds here. Where can they find you online?
PerryJohnson.com. Very simple. PerryJohnson.com. And they'll find me. And I know that a lot of people will think I'm too conservative, but the bottom line is that's what I believe in, and I am what I am.
Stand on principles, Perry. There's nothing wrong with that. We appreciate the honesty. I do. PerryJohnson.com if you want to find out more about his candidacy. Thank you, sir. I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll take a break and be right back. It is The Steve Gruber Show. All right, here we go. Back into it now. Let's see here. Anthony saw some breaking news on Luigi Mangione, but I don't see anything of importance in the last couple of days. But, Anthony, keep an eye on that for us, if you would, please. Greatly appreciate that. Luigi Mangione, of course, the guy who is accused of executing an executive from an insurance company, a health insurance company, in broad daylight on the streets of New York City. And some people on the left think that's a hero move, which is weird because they also support Obamacare. Work with this, Anthony. Think about this. They celebrate the guy who murders an insurance executive because insurance companies are evil. But they support Obamacare, which gives billions of dollars directly to those very same insurance companies. Does that make sense on any level? Anything?
No.
No. It's just the strangest thing. Anyhow. So fraud. Let's talk about fraud for a moment. I saw this yesterday, couldn't believe it. The fraud that you could conduct, and why we didn't think about this, Anthony, we should just slap ourselves. The fraud was so easy in Minnesota that people went there for fraud tourism. Fraud tourism. Yeah, they went. It was so easy to steal from Minnesota. Hey, let's just pack up the bags and go there. Listen to this.
This is the case involving the two men from Philadelphia who heard it was easy to rip off taxpayers here in Minnesota. Federal prosecutors have called this case fraud tourism, saying the men traveled here to steal from the now defunct Medicaid program. Today, they traveled back here to face the consequences, and I had the chance to ask them about it. They called it fraud tourism. Do you want to respond to that, sir?
I'm going to tell them.
Why Minnesota, Mr. Brown?
He's got no comment today, okay?
Anything you want to say to taxpayers here? That's Lester Brown and Anthony Jefferson, both from Philly. They admitted in court today to setting up businesses in the housing stabilization program here in Minnesota. We learned today the men used ChatGPT to draft fake client notes and use them to submit inflated bills for reimbursement. Prosecutors say instead of helping people find stable housing, they stole more than $3.5 million from the program that shut down late last year.
Is it too late? Career change. Let's just pack up the car and go to Minneapolis, Anthony. Just, real money in it. Those guys, fraud tourism. They're so bad in Minnesota, and the fraud is so rampant, we'll just move there and steal from the people. Those guys got caught. The question is, who got away with it? That's the real question. Jonathan Turley, one of my favorites, contributor on Fox News, of course, explains the depth of fraud in this country and how incredibly endemic and systemic it really is. Here he is.
Illegal immigration, fraud, including voting fraud, that we're facing around the country. I mean, this isn't one individual who came close to about $500,000, $500,000 in fraud, as well as the voting violation. And she did that by getting false identities, using those cards to get even more identification, and it sort of took off from there. But it's really breathtaking when you look at just these individual cases with almost $500,000 of fraud for one person. And you get a glimpse as to why we are looking at billions of dollars that have been burned through in this country. We're becoming a nation of chumps. That is, we have to deal with the interrelationship of election fraud, financial fraud that is connected to unlawful immigration.
A nation of chumps. That hurts a little bit. The fraudulent states of America. Unbelievable. And by the way, I disagree with Jonathan Turley on one point there. I don't think that it's billions of dollars. I think it's over $1 trillion a year that goes out the door fraudulently. You hear about unemployment fraud. You hear about these daycare centers, the health care centers, the voting fraud everywhere. It's rampant. It's absolutely rampant, the amount of fraud in this country in all sectors, which is odd to me because I don't think that way. You never think, well, how can I steal from this? How can I get a little extra? It's just cheat. I'm not a liar and I'm not a thief. I'm a lot of things. Those two things I am not. Speaking of fraud, by the way, How about the whole fraudulent Jeffrey Epstein conversation? They keep, Donald Trump's name's in there. Donald Trump's name, yes. And so what? So are a lot of other people's names in there. It doesn't mean anything. Doesn't mean that you went to the island and sexually assaulted minors. Doesn't mean that. Not sure what it means for Bill Gates, who apparently had an STD, but that's a different story. ABC News finally forced to admit Donald Trump had nothing to do with Epstein, but he helped investigators get Epstein convicted. This is what ABC News was finally forced to admit. Listen.
Document coming to light claims in the mid-2000s President Trump called police about Jeffrey Epstein. Among the 3 million Epstein files released by the Department of Justice last month is a 4-page FBI report on an interview the Bureau conducted in 2019 with a man believed to be former Palm Beach Police Chief Michael Ryder. Ryder and his detectives began investigating Epstein for human trafficking in 2004. According to the document, Trump called Ryder around that time and said, "Thank goodness you're stopping him. Everyone has known he's been doing this." Ryder also says Trump said he threw Epstein out of his club, and he was around Epstein once when teenagers were present, and Trump got the hell out of there. The former police chief says Trump told him to focus on Epstein's associate, Ghislaine Maxwell, saying she is evil.
Did you have any suspicions that he was molesting young women,
No, I had
underage
no
women?
idea. I had no idea.
Trump has long denied having any knowledge of Epstein's crimes, but Ryder says Trump was one of the very first people to call when people found out that they were investigating Epstein.
He is one of the people that tipped them off. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. Yeah, their dreams about bringing down Trump didn't work out, but the British government is teetering today. The British monarchy is teetering today because of the ugly revelations that have been coming out every time they find new documents in the Epstein file dump. Sorry, Democrats. What you're looking for wasn't there, but you might want to talk to Bill Gates about his medication for, that little problem that he had.
The STD.
Barf bag, please.
Got it.
All right, rounding it out now as we head toward the finish line of another big day here. Don't forget, tomorrow is Free Speech, Free for All Friday. It's your chance to get on the phone and get on the show. Tell me what you think about what's going on. Maybe it's the SAVE Act. Maybe it's the economy. Maybe it's Luigi Mangione. I don't know. You know, could be anything you want it to be. 877-310-9966. You can write that down. We do it for 3 hours every Friday so we can hear from you. It's important to stay in touch with you. Also, coming up Monday at 9 a.m., don't forget, Forgotten America will drop on YouTube. Just go to YouTube, look up Steve Gruber. That, of course, would be me. Everything Gruber is there. Me, Ivy, the podcast, this program, segments with great guests. It's all there for you to look at and listen to for the rest of eternity. That's the great thing about YouTube. Once it's there forever. And we're launching the Forgotten America podcast to make sure we can hear some voices, elevate voices you wouldn't otherwise hear. And I think I really want to have that woman back, the detransitioner that we were talking to earlier in the program. Very important that we hear these stories about the butchery. 1 hour meeting, a 1 hour meeting, and they said, yep, we're going to give you hormones, and we're going to give you a radical double mastectomy and all of these things. These people were criminal. These people were criminal, which is why this sort of thing has been banned in most European countries now, in many states now as well, as it should be. Anyhow, Kyle Rittenhouse is on Monday. No butchery there, just a reflection on a kid who says he never should have been there. Never should have been there. It's coming up on Monday, 9 a.m. Get over to YouTube, become a subscriber, hit the like button, do all the things you need to do, and we appreciate the support. Fight the good fight, keep the faith. God bless America. I'm Steve Gruber. This is the Steve Gruber Show. And remember, only you can save America.